Hey everybody, welcome back. You're looking here at a comparison between two flights between Atlanta and Dallas. And what we're trying to figure out is, does photogrammetry have an impact on performance? Of course, the answer is yes. The question is, how much? Stick around and find out. We are here in Hotlanta. We are in the Phoenix A321. Going to be heading over to Dallas, Fort Worth, Atlanta, the busiest airport in the world. Dallas, the fourth busiest airport in the world. On the upper left-hand corner, you can see my stats over there. And you can see there's even a stuttering percentage. So that's real time and not cumulative. So it's not going to go like 0.1% when I have my first stutter. See, right now there's 1%. And essentially what that means is that 1% of the frames that were being sent by the GPU right now were more than 25% slower than the average over the last 10 seconds or whatever the case may be. But that gives us a really good real-time look at stuttering. All right, now we're taxiing here to the runway. This is going to be an important part of this test to see how the airport performs. Essentially, you can see stuttering. It says 0.8. I don't see any. I mean, again, what that is showing is the percentage of frames that are being generated that are slower than, like, a certain percentage slower than the average of the last certain period of time. This airport, I would say, we're doing pretty well so far. Alright, and we're ready to go here. I added the GPU percentage to, you can see that now it's 67%. All the times that it's indicated stuttering, I have not seen any myself. And again, that's just a deviation from recent frames. That's just frames that are being generated at a lower, slower than other frames recently. So, but I haven't actually seen a stutter. There's the engines at 50% N1. There is EGT stabilized. Manual flex, SRS runway green, auto throttle blue, airspeed's alive, 80 knots. Looking good. For any stutter on the takeoff. B1 and rotate. Smooth as can be. Positive rate of climb gears coming up. It's showing stuttering, but again, I don't see any stuttering. Do you? I'm gonna go autopilot just to give myself time to focus here. Flaps 1. Flaps up. Again, showing stuttering, but I don't see any. All right, we're just abeam the field here in Dallas. Changed the stats a little bit on the way over. Just remove the overall GPU memory VRAM because it doesn't really matter. Overflying Dallas, you can see getting some indications on the stuttering statistic there, but I still haven't seen a single one. And what the stuttering statistic is, it's frame times that are above a rolling average. So basically any frame time delivered by the GPU that's significantly slower than the frame times in the in the recent past, basically. You're right there, you got a little bit of one. You just had 2.8% there for stuttering. I moved my head around, I didn't see a thing. We'll go flaps full. And indicating. I mean, just flawless. Absolutely flawless.
1,000.
My airplane.
Above. Minimum.
Continuing. That was a huge stutter there on the touchdown, so huge stutter, and my reversers are not working. So looking beautiful right up until the point of touchdown there. Interesting. I have to admit, I did not expect that. There's another good one. Well. So much for my theory anyway, right? The stuttering value is configurable, and I think I'm going to change it to something higher because it seems up above 10% is when you see an actual stutter. All right, see right there? Yeah, it's over anything over 10% is what gets you. So my next task is going to be flying this same flight with photogrammetry off. We'll see what happens then. Alright, here we are back again, pushing back out of Atlanta. This time with no photogrammetry. So we're going to see what kind of an impact that has, particularly on approach and landing. I have everything exactly the same as I had it set yesterday. For the previous flight, solid FPS, that was never a problem really yesterday. Just this, mainly the stuttering on approach. Don't really notice any of a much of a drop in VRAM yet, but my main curiosity is about the approach into Dallas with the photogrammetry off, and we'll see what we get there. Alright. Are on centerline, sort of. 50% N1. EGTs are stabilized. Going max toga today. SRS runway, auto throttle blue. Airspeed's alive, it's 80 knots. It was almost all the way to the end of the runway to get airborne yesterday. Much earlier with full toga power here. There's a positive rate of climb. Gears coming up. We'll go autopilot. Climb. Again, these wispy type clouds are generally where you get some performance degradation. Didn't have much of it yesterday. Experiencing much the same today. And photogrammetry is off, so let's see what we think of Atlanta with photogrammetry off. I mean, so far, it doesn't make a dime's bit of difference. I think it would, logically speaking, it would only make a difference if you were GA flying low and slow, right? It shouldn't really make much of a difference. There's a little bit of stuttering here, but again, look. No stuttering as far as I'm concerned. And again, I mean, the photogrammetry not being on, I don't know if it's a photogrammetry section of the city of Atlanta or not, probably not. I mean, everything looks fine to me. Alright, here we are. Back in Dallas. There's the airport right there off our left side. Going a downwind, left downwind for runway 18 right. Really doesn't look any different to me. And again, I don't know per se what exactly the photogrammetry here consists of. But I mean, what I remember from yesterday is simply a lot of planned housing. And there's a good left base. We were nice and smooth yesterday, right up until just before touchdown. My airplane. Yes, we should all be forewarned on flying. Stabilize.
Hundred above. Minimum.
Continue.
One hundred. $50, $40, $30, $20. Retard. Drive.
And once again, my reversers don't. I mean, it's weird. The speed is coming back as though the reversers are on. But I will say, with little in the way of hesitation, that was way smoother without photogrammetry than it was yesterday. I mean, way smoother. It's there may have been a hesitation or two in there. But overall, I mean, 99% better. 99% better for sure. I'm not sure that I would have expected that kind of a difference. So we'll have to take a look at the numbers here. But that was a huge improvement. I would almost say a night and day difference between yesterday and this approach here today. Now for the most important part of any flight. Oh, not a bad parking job. Not too bad. But let's take a look at the numbers here and we'll see what we get. All right, so let's take a look at the data here real quick. So on the top is the flight from today. That is with photogrammetry off. The bottom is the flight from yesterday with photogrammetry on. Doesn't look like a huge difference. What is that? Maybe not even 5% better frames per second, which it makes no difference. The 1% FPS low, 27.9 versus 27.6, a little bit better today. Same thing with the 0.2% low, a little bit better today, but nothing serious. Where we get into the good information that we're looking for is here in the next slide. So here in orange is the flight from today with photogrammetry on. In green is the flight from yesterday with photogrammetry off. You can see more spikes and bigger spikes on the flight from yesterday, and this is around the airport in Atlanta, and this is where photogrammetry is making the difference. Now, as we come along here, again, more spikes and bigger spikes on the flight from yesterday. I don't know if that's overflying Houston, overflying another area with photogrammetry is my guess. But where we really get to the interesting information is here at the end. And I don't quite know why you would have a much bigger impact at the end of a flight in terms of the photogrammetry than the beginning, but that's clearly the case. Look at this increase in the frame times here. Frame times are, it's the amount of time it takes for the GPU to render the frame, right? So the higher the frame time is, obviously the worse the performance, until you get to a point where you're going to see stuttering. Look at the flight from yesterday in green. Let me zoom in on this here. And you can see the flight yesterday in green. The flight today lags behind it a little bit, and then it just drops off. It doesn't continue to increase. The frame times do not continue to increase. Whereas on yesterday's flight with the photogrammetry on, the frame times keep increasing, and just go to the moon at some point. So you can see what a huge difference, a huge difference in terms of that increase in frame times on the flight yesterday versus the one today. So the photogrammetry there, huge impact. Coming back into the sim settings here, I'll show you what I've got. DLSS quality, NVIDIA frame gen, that's the frame gen mod. Dynamic settings off. I have VSync on in NVIDIA control panel. Actually, I think I have it on in the NVIDIA app. I do have some things turned up higher than I might normally have them. I would normally have these on high. But what I did was I went with the suggestions, the recommendations of the NVIDIA app, which is, the NVIDIA app suggestions are very close to what I normally run anyway. So I made a few changes based on that. Texture resolution, obviously, is a big one. I turned down some things like shadow maps and cube map reflections, again, per the recommendations of the NVIDIA app. But basically mostly ultra settings. And the one thing that I'm not running, which I always run, is auto FPS. So I think the next test is going to be to see what difference auto FPS has on the sim. But what I was trying to do here was just look at raw performance, sim update 4, photogrammetry off, photogrammetry on, based on the impact that I saw from photogrammetry being on in the video I did a few days ago from Zurich. So hopefully this illuminates some knowledge for us all. I had no idea that photogrammetry could make this big of a difference. And particularly if you don't see a difference when you're flying, if you're flying tube liners, I just don't think that you will. Perhaps turning photogrammetry off right here in the online settings is perhaps the way to go. It made an enormous difference on this flight. Hope this was useful to everybody. I'd be interested to hear what you have to say in the comments section below, any experiences that you have with photogrammetry on or off. And we will talk soon. Hope everybody's doing well.